Cloud.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
And you
And
all, you don't need to
I'm
stay on, Nathan, I don't think.
no,
So,
I'm gonna jump off and good luck. And I hope
well,
everyone
thank you. And
enjoy.
healing
Thank
prayers
you.
continue for you. And so, um, thanks for setting this up.
All right, I appreciate it, Sid. See you
All
later.
right. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
And I see you. I see a couple people. There's Ronnie. Hi, Ronnie. So good to see you. And Linda and Laura. Hi, Laura. And Mia. Mia, right? Is that correct? Great. We'll wait a couple more minutes and see if anyone else jumps on. But thank you all for coming. This is great. Where are you all? Maybe we can start off that way to find out so I can hear where you're from, where you're all stationed in this universe.
Hawaii.
Hawaii, where in Hawaii?
I live on the Big Island.
On the Big Island, whereabouts?
My home, not where I am now, is about 10 minutes from Hawaii National Park. So by the big crater that is erupting constantly.
Yes.
It's right by my house.
That's great. I was there not too long ago,
Oh,
last spring. And I worked in a church as a kahu at a congregational church in Hana a quarter of the year. So I'm there from last year. I was there from the February 1st through May. This year I'll be there from March 1st through the end of May.
it's like the rainy season. You're coming. So
Well, I don't mind. It's beautiful. And
yeah.
we get to watch whales off the back of our lanai, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, right. Well, if you come, connect. Sign here.
Yeah, if we get
Yeah,
to the Big Island, we sure will. So
definitely.
thank you, Mia.
Mm.
And who else?
I'm in Washington,
Bonnie.
D.C. I'm outside of Washington, D.C. Always a hopping place.
Yeah. It's so great to see you, Ronnie.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Yeah, I really when it's I don't know how long ago that intro class was, but I really just treasured your wisdom in that class tremendously. Thank you.
Hi,
And
everyone. Linda here. Um, so usually I'm on Wadawurrung land, which is north of Melbourne, but actually on holiday at the moment over in the southeastern coast of Australia.
Southeast.
And yeah, which is why I'm outside because I'm just out and about today. But I'm just sitting here. I'll just show you what I'm looking at here. I don't know if you can see, but
Beautiful.
it's just beautiful. And there's some, oh, I don't think you can see them, but the little black swans in there,
Yes.
family black swans. So I'm just sitting on a park bench.
How lovely.
So it's a beautiful spot and here for a week. It's a little break.
That's
So
great.
nice to see you all again.
And what time is it there?
It's 11:30 in the morning.
11:30. Okay. Great.
A very civilized hour.
And already Friday, right?
Oh, it just disappeared.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what I've done there. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, already Friday.
Yes. Okay. And Laura.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm actually in the San Diego area, but I'm from the Northwest, so I don't feel at home here, even though I've been here quite a while. So I always put my plug in for the Northwest because that's where I'm from.
That's where
So
you're
I'm a
from.
bit of a transplant temporarily, I guess, into San Diego.
Very good. Cool. Well, thank you all for being here. So if you don't mind, if just share briefly your interest in the ordination program and why you're here. And what I plan to do is kind of go through the basic elements, the primary competencies, and then we can ask questions and talk about time frame and other intricacies that may be required in nuanced ways depending on your background for ordination. So tell me your interests and why you're here. Anyone can start.
I love always the silence, waiting for the first person. It cracks me up. I'll just go. I'm an Aries.
Okay.
I'm just going to dive in.
All right.
I also have a daughter that needs picking up at some point, so I might have.
Okay.
I'm a deep time leadership graduate, so I'll say I've come through that. I just finished in June that program.
Great.
And this was one thought as part of
Yes.
my emergent project. My work here is I'm an end-of-life specialist and a hospice chaplain, which is I'm in our building right now in a quiet little area. And you know, a woman, a patient of mine asked me a question this morning. She goes, "Love, are you a minister?" And I paused because in my heart I minister to my community, but I've not found an avenue to have that title, let's say, through what's out there, through traditional methods. So I am here looking for the home that would allow me to kind of elevate my beliefs and my work, and be part of a community that I actually feel wholly a part of, and not say a couple words and go, "Oh, that's nice," but that's not really what my heart says. So that's a little bit of why I'm here.
Thank you, Mia. That's helpful.
I'll go next if you like.
Please.
I'm a graduate of the CSC certificate course, and I really found that course was really inspiring, but also I felt very at home in that. So that worked really well for me, and feeling like having a sense of belonging in that. My work here is as a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm in private practice. And my PhD was a multidisciplinary piece of work in applied theatre and psychology, working with women prisoners, and so I've done quite a lot of forensic work as well. And my early career was in music as a music teacher. So I've just found creation spirituality to be a path that allows me to express all these different parts of myself. And there's something else that's happening in terms of my change of direction. It might be stage of life, I don't know, but I'm just exploring that and feeling like there's some change afoot.
Cool. Lovely. Thank you.
I can go next.
Okay.
I'm a little bit, I can relate to some of the things that both Mia and Linda said. I'm coming from a perspective of, I call it healing work. I have a PhD in psychology. I'm a physical therapist, but it's what's more like psycho-spiritual work. I actually work a lot with the spirits and energy work and all of that stuff. So a big part of it is that. So I do, and it's spiritually driven for me, but I also work with people from different backgrounds in terms of their spirituality. So I'm still contemplating it and thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's right for me, but it's for me, I'm also in the CSC program, the CERT program right now. I started, this is my 4th class. I started halfway through the last group. So that's what I'm thinking of, is just looking at leveling that into a different area. Not sure yet, but I was interested to see what creation spirituality is doing with that, or CSC, I should say, and how that's going to work. So that's where I'm coming from, is sort of a healing, psycho-spiritual sort of energetic body work type background.
Excellent. Thank you.
Meditation. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
Ronnie, you're up.
I thought this was free choice.
It is sort of.
Okay. Well, I am, like Linda, a graduate of the certificate program. When I started the certificate program, I was halfway through a master's PhD program with Ubiquity University, sort of inner science, outer science sort of thing. Like Laura, my work is definitely with the spirits. Intergenerational work is really my big focus. Indigenous intergenerational work, hospice work. There's just several areas at this point in life you've been touched and called into a lot of things. So there's something, and I'm a chemist by early training, my first vocation. So, which was part of that call into ubiquity, that inner science. It's something shifting. Even my yes to this certificate program, it's almost like there's something else. I don't really want to jump through the hoops of the science piece of it. I know how to do it. I can do it. But there's just when this was offered, I thought, oh, well, let me just see what a next step could possibly be with this. And but one thing I have to say, as comfortable as I am with the community, loved having found this kind of deep time sort of place. I still call myself Catholic. I'm a raised, and I don't think the Catholic Church would consider me Catholic, but I am. and quite honestly, this I'm like, I'm not quite sure what I would do with that reverend.
Mhm.
But it's like, just that title or whatever, something about that is a challenge for me. But yet at the same time, I think that's what I do. It's the space that I'm holding for people. So I come with questions, more than a clarity of, and that's sort of like, oh, well, I mean, there must be a reason why I just jumped into the certificate program instead of finishing the track that I was on. So this just seems like a logical next thing to just explore.
Can I ask you a question real quick about Ubiquity? Is it still going? Is it still operational? The whole Ubiquity. I was good friends with Will Tagle, and so he was sort of my knowledge of Ubiquity. So I really haven't heard anything since Will died.
Oh, I mean, fairly recently, I've heard from the registrar, and
Oh, good.
kind of tapping me on the shoulder and asking, that I can take my time, but what am I doing? So I'm assuming yes.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. I thought it was a really interesting program. I mentored one PhD person through her dissertation at Ubiquity, and that was a real honor to do that. That was a fun project for me. Took about 2 years, but really enjoyed that. Well, little background, real quickly. There have been 3 ordination classes with CSC over the years. And Roxanne Whitelight developed from her dissertation at Creation Spirituality University sort of a program for ordination because there was a need. And even though her ordination is not with CSC, it is with a different denomination, but she developed this program, and there have been 3 groups that have been ordained, but they've been sort of, there hasn't been a continuous program. There's sort of been on the board every 5 or 6 years, someone says, oh, there's some interest in ordination. We should do another ordination. And so at a gathering, they will pull together different people interested. And so the hope is that people who are graduates of Ubiquity, University of Creation Spirituality, Holy Names, that these people would find, and then eventually the seminary that was started in Boulder that didn't make it. There was the hope that all of these would be a way for people to have an ordination path. What's interesting is that CSC officially, was only 3 years ago that it gained the status of being officially, in terms of the IRS, a church. And so we've not had an ordination class since we've been officially under that legal banner. All of this is to say is that there's been an interest in the past, but there's not been a cohesive sort of vision. And one of the things that the CERT program and this competency program is trying to do is say, okay, we need to be grown-ups now about this, and need to have a consistent plan for ordination that doesn't just sort of acknowledge leaders that have emerged, but also try to provide a way for that to have an ongoing connection. One of the sadnesses is that those ordination classes really are not connected. They're sort of disconnected unless they sort of circle back and become involved. And so one of our hopes is that this will not only provide a way for people to be ordained who wish to be ordained, who feel a calling to be ordained, but also that there will be a sense of community among those who are ordained. In different denominations of churches and even synagogues and Zen priests, there's sort of a community of ordinands that have all met certain standards, and they meet on occasion, and they talk, and they hold each other accountable. And that's a piece that's been missing. And so we're hoping that this is the sort of the grown-up version. We hope to loop those that were ordained earlier into this, so that they're still a part of it. But going forward, we really want it to be a sense of ordinand community. So it's not just about the individual, acknowledging the individual threshold and credentials. It's also about creating an ongoing vision of creation spirituality communities of seasoned and trained leaders who can collaborate beyond just the board and create the vision for the future together, whether they're serving churches or whether they're doing hospice work, whether they're engineers or chemists or whatever they're doing in their actual life as ordained, they'll be able to help with the vision and the direction of CSC. Does that sort of, I wanted to sort of give you this overall sense of where the vision was for this. Does that, any questions about that? Does that make sense? And my own, I'm not ordained CSC. I was ordained United Methodist and was a United Methodist minister for 40 years, and then 42 years. And then when I retired, I moved my ordination to the United Church of Christ. And now I'm doing this interim, well, it's not really interim because it's every year, but I'm doing the spring pastor, the spring kahu in Maui. And so that's my ordination. But we want to, if someone's already ordained in another denomination, we want to be able to have an option for having standing in CSC. And that's typically in ordination, you're only ordained in one place. You're not multiply ordained. But we want to provide a place for those who are already ordained in some other tradition to have standing. So for instance, Mel, who's like the guru of our CSC board and movement, who's just the resource of endless resource, was Matthew Fox's assistant before Dennis was, and just he's deep into the tradition of it. He's never been ordained in CSC, but he's actually a retired United Methodist minister in actuality. But there's no one more CSC than Mel. So we want to make Mel, we want to give him standing as a CSC ordinand. So there'll be different paths for different people. So that's kind of the vision. Any questions before I go into the specifics of the program? Yes, Laura.
I just had one question about, you answered one, which was that you're only really ordained in one tradition.
Mhm.
And the other question I had is for the folks who were ordained earlier, I'm assuming that's when was at the University of Creation Spirituality? Those folks, is that what you're?
It was different groups. Some were from way back where it was Holy Names before University of Creation Spirituality. Some were actually they went through an ordination program, their ritual, but they were already ordained in other traditions, and we didn't really bother looking closely at that. So in actuality, they're not really ordained CSC, but they'd be granted standing. So for instance, Matthew Fox went through one of the rituals, I think in 2015 of ordination, when we met at Berkeley. And but Matt is an ordained Episcopal priest in actuality, and that's where his ordination lies. So he would, in sort of after the fact, we would make Matt give him standing as a CSC ordinand, since he's already been. The rituals in the past didn't have this sort of close look to make sure we did it all the right way.
And I was curious how that matched with the IRS, because you mentioned that via the IRS, it's officially a church the last 3 years. So is that something that it loops back? I mean, I wasn't clear. So I think you just clarified a lot of that,
Yeah,
though.
I think those people that were quote unquote ordained in the ritual we will reach out to them and say, you know, if you're already ordained in another tradition, we would like to grant you standing. However, to continue to have standing, it's officials, if you're ordained in another tradition or not, there'll be certain things that you need to do. So, for instance, one of the things that we will do is we will ask everyone to do a boundary training, official boundary training on sexual and monetary ethics every 3 years. And it's not expensive. It's like, I just did it for the UCC. It's the 5th time I think I've done it over the last 15 or 20 years. But it's from a legal standpoint and from a insurance standpoint, we have to do that. And it's also a great training on how to have good boundaries. That's something we'll require, and if they're not willing to do that, then they can't maintain standing or active. They'll still be, ordination's weird. Ordination, once you're ordained, you're always ordained. Even if the church defrocks you, you are still ordained. When Matthew Fox was defrocked from the Catholic Church, along with Hans Kuhn, he was still ordained. He just didn't have his orders where he could function as a priest, because the theology was that once God ordained you, not the entity, not the church entity. So ordination is forever. And believe me, there are some that should not have that forever status in that role. But ordination is forever. But your orders, where you're allowed to function as a priest or as a minister, is up to the judicatory body. And in this case, that will be the CSC. And what the CSC will require is for you to have an active status. You must do the boundary training every 3 years, which I think is very good. Does that make sense? It's just, my wife is a psychotherapist, and for a psychotherapist to remain psychotherapist, it doesn't matter if you're retired. It doesn't matter if you're going to practice. You have to make sure that you do certain things to keep your status up to date, and that's something that hasn't been done in CSC, and we will have that as a part of this plan. I'm getting into the technical stuff now.
Sid, I just want to say hello. This is Robin.
Hey, Robin.
Hi. I'm also on the board of CSC and on the ordination committee, helping to create the program. I'm a DMin graduate from UCS. And I just wanted to say hello and happy to be also going to be doing the ordination program myself as well. And also, part of presenting for it.
You'll be one of the instructors. Yes. Hi, Robin. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, I came in a few minutes late. I'm sorry. And I don't know, I came in a little late, but is it Diza? Did she say? I'm not sure if she was able to say her interest in the program. I didn't hear. I don't know if she's still here with us.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Are you there? Oh, hey. Please.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
and please, Diza, yes.
I am in St. Louis, and right now I'm in the
the hollers here in the Ozarks, and so I apologize. My video might be wonky here a bit, but yeah, thank you.
Yes, and your interest. Tell us about where you're coming from.
Yeah, I am on sabbatical now. I just finished running a retreat sabbatical center for about 20 years or so, and I thought, I needed a sabbatical after that. And at the moment, like with the rest, like Laura, I believe, yeah, I'm in the CSC program too for certification. I've been to Holy Names. That's where I first learned of math.
Wow.
And so I'm looking at, I'm really discerning discernment right now. I'm on another program for as an Anamkara apprentice for soul wifing, and I thought this might be a good kind of parallel, as I already ministered to the community here in St. Louis. But like I said, I'm on the very beginning phase, and I really would like to discern some more on this. But very interested in what the group has to offer. So thank you, Sid.
Thank you. I looked at, I didn't see that there were more people on here, so I apologize. My screen is more full and I can see that. So, well, why don't I go into a little bit talking about kind of the general idea of what we're looking at to give you a sense of the structure. We are
Just
looking
before you,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, Sid.
Go ahead.
Just before you do, I'm just interested in the implications of what you were saying before for someone who's outside of the States and particularly on the other side of the world. What might that be in terms of the idea of an ordination community, and perhaps even some of the policy or legal aspects of that?
That is interesting because we do have people in Canada and the UK and Australia, obviously, and so we want to make sure that we're not just thinking only in terms of the US. I think that what we would probably do, and this is just off the top of my head without exploring this in detail, I think that we'd have to find out what legally constituted. So for instance, if you wanted to conduct, I'll just take an example, conduct a wedding and do that as an ordained minister. The credentials from the US may not be substantial for anyone who's ordained in some entity out of the US. So if I go to Australia, I might have to go through certain hoops in order. I may not be able to sign a legal document, for instance. And so those kinds of things would have to be worked out locally. I'm thinking though that that there would still need to be certain things like the boundary training that maybe is done locally, and so that it meets the certification from the local government, and it may not work to have some psychologist in the US sign that certificate, because because that piece is legal. That's the legal piece that protects you. It doesn't stop you from being sued if there's inappropriate boundary violation, but it does provide some level of protection for you and the denomination and CSC. So I would think that there would have to be some equivalent that was done there. Does that answer that? You know,
I'm sure there would be, and that would just take a little bit of research, but I know, for instance, in my profession, because I'm a registered profession, there are certain legal registration, and so I should imagine that there would be something similar for ordained people.
I would think, I would hope.
Yeah.
I know that in the past, all of that was pretty sloppy, no matter where it was in the world. But I think because of the way those positions of authority have been abused, there are now more and more checks and balances. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to have that. So, yeah, as a United Methodist for many years, if a United Methodist pastor had an affair with a secretary or a youth director or something, they just move the pastor to another church. I mean, that's the kind of way they treated it. It was just awful, and so that kind of abuse was spread around. Same thing with even you know, doing stuff with money in ways that were unethical. They just moved them. Well, now, of course, and probably driven by the insurance companies, but now, thank goodness, that does not happen. They are removed from service. They cannot take on the name of.
It's been the same.
Pardon?
Yeah, it's been the same here. There's been significant legal cases, and it's really shifted things.
Thank goodness. Yes. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. So why don't I share?
Sid.
Why don't I share a little bit? What we sort of realize is that there's two aspects of the ordination to make it kind of what it needs to be. There's the classes from either holy names or University of Creation Spirituality or whatever manifestation it was at the time, or even years of serving in a CS community, that sort of years of service provided that theological background. That's what the certification program that we've done, the CERT program, addresses. It gives a theological, spiritual background of creation spirituality. And so that is a core piece, obviously, to be ordained in CSC. You've got to have that kind of background, that you have to be proficient in being able to articulate creation spirituality and what it means to be in that theological perspective. But there's this other piece too, and that's the pastoral. And even if one doesn't serve a church as a pastor, you know, the Apostle Paul was, I often say this when we're talking about this stuff, the Apostle Paul was never ordained. He was a tent maker by profession. But he was called to do what he did that was outside of, but through his tent making, by looking at his writings, it looks like what he did is he went into places and he worked as a tent maker and then did whatever he was going to do regarding his message in spirituality. And so one of the things that's driving this ordination is Matthew Fox's idea of the reinvention of work. Matt talked about how important it was, and we really believe this on the board and on this committee, that ordination doesn't have to look like the traditional pastor. It can happen in hospice. It can happen as a psychologist. It can happen as an engineer or an accountant. There are multiple ways. So ordination is not exactly tied to a occupation. It's tied to a vocation that could manifest itself in multiple occupations. Does that make sense? And so it might manifest itself in creating small groups or a community, a CS community, but it doesn't have to. But having said that, there are still certain sort of core things that go with ordination, even with the reinvention of work, that we want people to have core competencies in. And I'm going to read those right now. There are 7 of them, and I'll try to just give you a quick summary of them. What we're thinking is that over a period of no more than 18 months, there would be a series of classes. There's 7 competencies. The first 2 would be in a retreat, and hopefully that would be an in-person retreat. We really want to do that because we want the Ordnan class to have a sense of community together. So that will be an expense that will be part of it, is coming together that first time. And 2 of the competencies will be addressed at the retreat. The other 5 will be done over Zoom, and we'll have a month each to work on those. And then at the end of that, when those 7 competencies have been addressed, the first being a retreat and the last 5 through 5 different sessions, not every month, but like every other month kind of thing. So there's some time spread out a little bit, so it's not too tight of a schedule. There would be another in-person gathering where we would participate in the ordination, where there would be an ordination service, and we'd be together once again. And that might even be scheduled so that it's coordinated with when there's a gathering, a CSC gathering or something like that, so that there'll be lots of people there to celebrate and participate. So that's sort of structurally what we're looking at. But the competencies themselves, this is what they are. The first one, they're kind of roles. The role of committing oneself to discernment toward the path of ordination, to basically look at what that means and explore through conversation, through understanding creation spirituality, looking at what that really means in what it means to be ordained in CSC. And then the second one, which would be part of that same retreat, is looking at things like boundaries, consultation, dialogue, what it means to be a part of not just a lone wolf out there, but really part of a group. And so, and the growing edges around being in this process as a community. So those are the two competencies: ordination discernment, and then interpersonal ability to maintain boundaries, seek consultation, and dialogue about your growth process. And that's really, that will be in the first retreat. Then the first Zoom meeting after that will be the role of teacher and preacher, basically finding your voice within creation spirituality. What is your voice? Looking at different learning styles, different ways to present your gifts, because everyone has different gifts in how they communicate, and discovering that and sort of putting that out there. Looking at facilitating a group that where you are a leader, those kind of competencies will be explored. And so that's really the preacher teacher out there being a voice. And then the fourth role, the second Zoom, is pastoral care and spiritual support giver. What it means to be that, not just one-on-one with individuals, but also being a healing presence in a hurting world. And one of the things that we'll really emphasize there, and this is Robin, who just joined us, this is where she will lead, bringing in body work and art as meditation, and what it means to be not just creation spirituality from the neck up, but bringing your whole person into that, and that approaching pastoral care from that holistic perspective. And so we'll look at basic things of basic pastoral care, but we'll also look at what that means in the context of creation spirituality that doesn't compartmentalize the head and the heart from each other. And then the fifth role is developing ritual, how to create ritual, what it means to make ritual, to develop it, and bringing your own gifts, your own history, your own backgrounds into that, but doing it in a way that enhances creation spirituality. And then the sixth role is community builder. It's sort of like the role of the activist, the role of creating consensus, the role of being a prophet, how to be a prophet without being a jerk, those kinds of things. The Matthew Fox says that the mystic the role of the mystic is to awaken to creation, and the role of the prophet is to make sure that you still have a creation, basically. And so it is that role of the prophetic and the community builder. And that's early on in creation spirituality, there was a tendency for some, and I remember going to a conference with Matt in the early 90s, and somebody talked about being that they really loved creation spirituality because it felt like it was we were spiritual beings trapped in a body, they said. And Matthew said, oh, no, our body is part of the earth and part of community. And we are not trapped in that. That is part of the gift of creation. So community building and social justice is an essential piece of creation spirituality. I just loved that response. And then the last competency is the role of minister, what it means to integrate all those things that we've talked about in the other 6 competencies, but even get down into some practical things like finances, legal stuff, safety, what it means to work with the board of directors of CSC, what it means to be a part of an ordination group. So some of the practical stuff about actually living this out. And all of those together then will then lead to that that ordination service. And so the hope is that at the end of this process, the certification program will provide the theological and spiritual foundation, and then these 7 competencies will do sort of it's sort of like a Cliff Note version of seminary, of the things you typically might learn in seminary around pastoral care and preaching and administration and education and social justice, that sort of thing. So then in the end product will be people that are fully invested in CSC and could carry it forward. So I think I'll stop there. Does that I've been talking a lot. Does that help or confuse you? I really want to hear from you. Ronnie.
Cost.
Oh, cost. Yes. We're still working that out. But let's see. Where is that? I had it written down.
Yeah, we had that. We broke that down and created the cost. I don't have it in front of me either.
It's gonna be around there'll be tuition to pay for the instructors, and then there'll be the retreat and some of those things, the cost of the retreat, all of that combined, we're looking at, I think, around $6,000 for the total. And you'd have to provide your own transportation to the retreats. That doesn't include your transportation, but it does include the lodging and the food for those retreats. It also includes the cost of doing some things like there are a couple of things that are required. For instance, everyone will have to have a psychological exam, even though that's just a standard thing with ordination. So, and we have to pay a professional who knows how to interpret that, and there'll be a committee on ministry that looks at that, and so that's around $500 or $600. The boundary training is around $90 to $100, and so it's that those are some of the things that are included. But the main thing will be paying the instructors for teaching the classes.
There's also an option that we talked about paying monthly throughout the
Yes.
program. And I think it came out to, again, I'm sorry, I don't have
Go
the
ahead.
numbers, but it was about $300 and something dollars a month, throughout the program.
Yeah. I think the tuition itself, the raw tuition, was going to be around $3,400. I'll get that for you. I'll have Nathan. He came up with since I wrote this down, he came up with slightly different numbers, and I don't have it right here on me. But it is a hefty cost to pay for the classes and the that doesn't include the certification classes. That's just the competency classes, the retreats, and the ordination itself. And by the way, just so you know, it's the cost of the instructors is about the same as what we're paying the instructors for the certification program. This is not a money-making project for CSC. They did not they don't want to lose money in it, but they are, this was not, those figures that I gave you were not designed as a profit-making venture for CSC. It was a way to cover the costs for these, for having a good program in ordination. Did I say that correctly, Robin?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Covering costs and hopefully, building community is our main goal for this
Really
program. As Sid said earlier, just how the future of creation spirituality is growing. So yeah. Laura, did you have a question?
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
Laura?
actually, another one came to mind, but my which is that cost when you say for the classes? Are you talking about those monthly?
Yes.
So okay, and then the other question I had is if the CSC program is the idea to get that to be only to funnel people interested in ordination eventually, or will that still remain open? I'm curious.
It is still remain open. There will be people that the certification program will continue on, and there will be those that want those classes, and we're going to offer, one of the things that we're going to be doing in the future too is offering electives in addition to those cert classes, and that will, it doesn't have to be, that's not tied to ordination. It can lead toward ordination, but it doesn't have to. It can just be to grow the knowledge of creation spirituality community, sort of take the place of what the University of Creation Spirituality used to do, at least to the best of our ability.
Sid, I think I missed something. You were saying something about what is covered and what is not covered in that amount, like the competent. You said something wasn't covered.
Travel, your own cost of a travel, like if to the retreat or to the ordination, but the cost of the lodging and food and all of that would be covered in that for the retreat, but not your own personal travel.
Okay, but the other.
And there may be some other. You might have, your own, if you're writing, it doesn't cover the, if there are certain books that are going to be, you are asked to read during the cert program or the competency program, and there will be some books that are you'll be asked to read. It doesn't cover the cost of those books either. So books and travel, but I think everything else is covered. The main thing being the lodging and the food for the retreats, and the psychological exams that will be a requirement for everybody, and the boundary training that will be a requirement, and paying the instructor. That's what that covers. And I think we based it on having at least 10. We sort of had to come up with a number to get those costs. In my memory, am I right, Robin? It was based on like 10 people, at least
I
10.
think so. I think we, yeah, just based it on the number of people who've also come forward with interest.
Yeah.
And yeah. And the costs
With
being
10
covered.
people contributing each to the instructors and stuff like that, that cost is what we came up with. And again, this is not CSC trying to do fundraising. This is really trying to put together a robust ordination program that, and it does sound like a lot of money. And if I were personally on that journey myself, it would make me pause and ask how I would be able to do that. But when you think about the cost of seminary, or even some denominations do like a course of study over a period of years where you don't have to do seminary, but you meet on weekends and such, it still is much cheaper than it would be to enroll in a sort of an academic institution. Of course, we're not certified under the like academic institutions are, but neither was CSC wasn't, and or University of Creation and Spirituality wasn't either. So yeah.
Sid?
Laura.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, or Robin or Sid. So if there's fewer than 10, would you still go forward? And is the plan for next fall? I was just curious if there was a.
Yes, we'd hoped for this fall. But we did not, the interest wasn't there. The response wasn't as robust as we had hoped. So we thought, let's give it a year. Let's talk about it. Let's work out the kinks. Let's get people hearing different narratives like what we're doing tonight, and then put together and go forward. And I think we'd like to have, I don't think we've actually talked about it, but I think we'd like to have 10, at least 10.
I think, yeah, but I think with, part of the reason that we're postponing is that, we just haven't gotten the information out enough.
Yeah.
But that's why we're doing these informational sessions. We have another one coming up on Saturday. And I think so there, we already have, including some of us on the board who are going to be doing the ordination program. Our plan is to, unless we just have very little interest, but I don't really expect that our plan is to move forward next fall so that we, it gives more people time to get through, the CSC certification program too. And, people who are interested. So I don't know. I think we're all feeling pretty confident that we'll have a group that will go forward in the fall, next fall.
Yeah, I think that I do think that when you look at the board members that are already interested and some of the others that have expressed, I think we won't have trouble with 10, getting 10, which is kind of fun. I mean, that's the idea of that community going through that together. I don't know. It's just, I think that's could be very exciting in terms of community building.
Yeah.
Yes, Ronnie.
And you're anticipating, like, starting next fall for it to be 18 months long?
Yes, yes, starting in the fall. Um, and um, and so there'd be like a retreat, and then there'd be 2 months, probably November is what we're looking at for the open beginning retreat. And then in January would be the first Zoom session, and then again in March, and then May, break in the summer, pick it up back in the fall again, and then when the classes are ended, there'll still be some time after the competency classes. There will be a paper, not a big paper, 5 to 10 pages at the most, between 5 and 10, whatever the person that is your own statement of call, your sense of calling and purpose, and bringing in your knowledge of creation spirituality and these pastoral competencies, all in that paper, saying, here I am, and this is why I'm doing this. And that will be something that everyone does, even those that have already gone through seminary and had basically the competencies already done, those who have already who graduated with a degree from the University of Creation Spirituality. Everyone, whether they're just getting standing or they're actually being ordained, will need to write a paper to show that everyone will have to have psychologicals, boundary training, and a paper, no matter what their background. I hope to have standing myself. So even though I'm leading this process, I will have to write a paper that shows why I think I should have standing in this. So, I think it's a good process.
Yeah. There's also going to, just something that wasn't mentioned before, is that there's going to be mentoring.
Thank you, Robin. Yes.
Yeah. So each person will be paired up with a mentor throughout the program.
And do you remember, Robin, I think we accounted for some cost for a mentor.
Yeah, I think that was included in the cost.
We did, yes.
I believe so. And that partially, that's what will be paid to the mentors through CSC. And then, if the ordinand wants, more mentoring, or, that can be worked out separately with the mentor, if there's additional cost there, but there'll be a basic minimum contact with a mentor with a basic cost that's included.
And this will be someone who's experienced in CSC and who has a background, and but there'll be a list of different people. You can pick yours too. There may be some that have more of a specialty in the area that you won't be assigned that. You'll get to pick someone who has interest or expertise in the area that you want to focus. So, and
our hope is to create this class, to ordain people and then build more mentors, for future cohorts.
Yes. So one of the hopes, thank you, Robin. One of the hopes is that as someone who goes through this process yourself, then you will be available, and the mentors aren't paid it's not a great paying coaching gig, but it's a way to help get a little bit of a stipend and a way to help the process on. So the hope is that you'll have an interest in being a mentor then yourself after you've gone through this. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I'd completely blanked that piece of it, Robin. Thank you.
So I'm aware of the time. I don't know how
Oh,
long
yes.
we're planned, but are there any more questions so we can?
Yeah, I didn't want to go certainly more than an hour and a half, but we're already over an hour. So if there's yes.
Just one for clarity on that last point. So a mentor could be somebody who's not necessarily teaching in the program officially. It could be, I just want to clarify. That's what I thought I heard you all say.
There'll need to be someone who has knowledge of creation spirituality. So you wouldn't be just, go ahead. Yeah.
And practice kind of ministering through creation spirituality.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have an initial list of people who, kind of approved list at the beginning.
But there maybe the people we have on there, maybe we will have forgotten someone. And
yeah. You can bring someone forward,
right,
and maybe get them approved or whatever.
If you know of someone that says, oh, I'm surprised that so-and-so is not on this list. I would really like that person to be my mentor. And so this is fluid, very fluid.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, can you think of anything else? If not,
informative.
Lisa,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was it helpful?
Yes.
Yes. Thank
good.
you.
I did have a quick question.
Yes.
With the competency classes, would they require papers or like the classes in the certification program?
Some of the focus of those competency classes will be mainly discussion, but there may be some reports, or it's not going to be heavy on the paper stuff, but there might be some, but they won't be long dissertation type papers. They'll be just reflections on a book or that you read or that we ask you to read, or that sort of thing.
Or discussion prompts throughout the month,
yes.
Time.
The emphasis is not on academics and the competencies. It's really on just having a working knowledge of what's required, and a lot of that can happen through discussion, through connection with each other. So there may be some, Ronnie, but not much. That's not going to be certainly not as much as has been required in the CERT program. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. I thought I'd close with this, one of my favorite poems that I used as a pastor over and over again. And we often maybe not think of this person as creation spirituality, but I certainly do. Gerard Manley Hopkins. So I leave you with these words. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed Why do people then now not wreck this rod? Generations have trod, and all is scarred with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears human smudge and shares human smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. That's the via negativa. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. And though the last lights of the black west went, oh, morning at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with awe bright wings. Little Gerard Manley Hopkins. Well, thank you all. And if you have any questions, I don't know if you, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat my email, just so you know. And you can email me at any time, and I will answer you promptly. Got it? All right. Any other questions? All right. Have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.